Hey, welcome. So today we're going to dive into a pretty revolutionary idea. How do you actually achieve those huge, life-changing goals? Well, what if I told you it's not with these massive, scary leaps, but with tiny little steps? Steps so small you'd probably think they don't even matter. Let's get into it. I mean, think about that for a second. This question just completely flips the script on what we're usually told, right? That you need this huge, painful effort to make any real change. But what if that's all wrong? What if the real secret, the real key to everything you want, is hiding in plain sight, in all those little moments we just ignore every day? Okay, so where does it all go wrong for most of us? Well, we fall headfirst into this really common psychological trap. It's called the all or nothing trap. You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that voice in your head that says, hey, if you can't make it to the gym for a full hour, why even bother going? Or if you can't sit down and write 1,000 words, might as well just not write at all today. So let's actually break down these two competing ideas. On one hand, you've got the massive action approach. Go big or go home. It sounds great. It promises these huge, dramatic results really fast. But the reality? It's super intimidating, and let's be honest, it's a one-way ticket to burnout. Then you've got the other side, small wins. It's definitely not as flashy, but its power is in building this slow, steady, and honestly, unstoppable momentum that lasts. And this right here, this is the trap in action. We all know the feeling. You get this massive burst of motivation, right? So you create this epic, perfect plan, but it's just too big. And pretty soon, you're totally overwhelmed by how massive it is. And what happens next? Yep, you quit. I'm sure that sounds familiar. And that cycle, right there, is exactly why our best intentions, our most exciting dreams just fizzle out. But what if there's a completely different way to think about this? Let's talk about a new approach. This is where we're going to flip the whole script and look at the incredible, almost secret power of just getting 1% better. So this whole idea, it's not new. It's actually rooted in a Japanese philosophy called Kaizen. It basically just means continuous improvement. A great example is a company like Toyota. They don't just reinvent the car every year. Instead, they make thousands of tiny, tiny improvements to their process. None of those little tweaks are earth-shattering on their own, but when you add them all up, you get these huge leaps in quality. And guess what? That exact same principle works for our lives too. All right, so let's talk numbers. What does getting just 1% better every single day actually look like after a year? Now, your first guess might be, well, 365% better. But that's not even close. Because of compounding, the same force that grows money, you actually end up almost 38 times better. No, that is not a typo. 37.78. That is the absolutely mind-blowing power of tiny, consistent gains stacking up over time. And this is the real secret, the key takeaway here. Real, lasting success isn't about some heroic, one-time effort. It's not about being a superhero for a day. It's about the quiet, consistent, daily discipline of just stacking up those small wins, one on top of another, day after day, until one day you look up and you've built something so huge that everyone else thinks it was an overnight success. Okay, so that's the why. The theory sounds great, right? Almost magical. But how do we actually do it? How do we put this into practice? Well, the secret to getting started with anything is all about your first 2 minutes. And that brings us to something called the 2-minute rule. Its only job, its entire purpose, is to make starting so easy it's almost silly. We all know this, right? The single hardest part of doing something new is just getting started. This rule is designed to absolutely smash through that resistance. It lowers the bar so much that it's harder to say no than it is to just do it. And you won't believe how simple it is. Step 1, figure out what your big goal is. Step 2, shrink that goal down, way down, to something you can do in 2 minutes or less. And step 3, just do that tiny first step. That's it. See, the point right now isn't to finish the marathon. The point is to get really, really good at showing up. Let's make this super concrete with a couple examples. So let's say your goal is to read 50 books this year. That sounds huge. But your 2-minute start? Just read 1 page. That's it. Or maybe you want to run a marathon. Your 2-minute start is just to put on your running shoes and tie them. See? Anyone can do that. You're not trying to build the whole habit in one go. You're just making it impossible not to start, day in and day out. Okay, now we're going to shift gears a little bit, because this is where things get really, really deep. We've been talking about habits and actions, which is great. But this whole idea goes so much further than that. This is really about building your identity. It's about becoming the person you want to be, one tiny little action at a time. And here's a really powerful way to think about it. Every single action you take, every time you do one of these little habits, even a 2-minute one, it's like you're casting a vote. A vote for the type of person you want to become. So every time you read that one single page, you're casting a vote that says, I am a reader. Every time you just put on your running shoes, you're casting a vote that says, I am a runner. See, these small wins are so much more than just progress. They're actual proof. They're evidence that you're showing yourself about who you really are. And that right there is the ultimate point. You don't just wake up one morning and decide to be a different person. It doesn't work that way. Your identity, it's built. It emerges from the evidence of your actions, day after day. Your habits literally build who you are, and that identity creates your entire life. So let's pull this all together. We've talked about the big trap that holds so many of us back. We've talked about the incredible power of 1% improvement. We've given you a super practical tool to get started, the 2-minute rule. And we've looked at how all of this actually shapes who you become. So now there's really only one question left. So here's the blueprint one last time. First, you got to spot that all or nothing trap and just get rid of it. Second, start embracing the awesome power of getting 1% better every day. Third, use that 2-minute rule so starting feels like nothing. And last, and maybe most important, remember that every little thing you do is a vote for your future self. So I'm going to leave you with this one thought. And I'm not talking about tomorrow or next week. I'm talking about today, right now. What is one tiny 2-minute vote you can cast for the person you want to be? What's that very first step you're going to take?